Tennessee's chief of police was caught living not a double life, but a triple life.
A developing story, a Texas police chief is out of a job this morning after being arrested by the Texas Rangers. This story has now shocked a small town in the Panhandle.
Texas police chief is having a bad week. Hours after his cheating scandal went viral, Stinnett Police Chief Jason Collier was arrested Thursday for tampering with a government document.
We are hearing from one of the women who claimed she was involved with the former Stinnett Police Chief Jason Collier.
Her viral social media post sparked an investigation that led to his arrest and resignation.
It all started with this picture.
I woke up the next morning to a text from a very good friend. She said, okay, I know where I know him from. She goes, I'm friends with his wife on Facebook. And I was completely shocked.
This is a ring video of one of the many times she says he would visit her while still on the clock. Not only that, but she says he had met her family, had their picture up in his office, and even went as far as asking her to pick out an engagement ring. She confronted him about the marriage and he claimed he was divorced. He even showed her this document saying it was the annulment. After she made a public records request, she found out it was a fake document. And that is what began an investigation and ultimately led to his arrest. Little did she know at least 7 other women would also claim they were in a relationship with him.
The story went nationwide. And when it went nationwide, more and more women started coming forward and saying that this chief of police was spending a whole lot more time talking to women other than his wife than he was policing that town. He's going to talk about the details of what he did and, more importantly, why he did it. The shocking story in an exclusive sit-down interview. First off, I give you a lot of credit for manning up and being here to own this whole thing and talk about it instead of, hiding out. And I assume this is not a stretch of your life that you're proud of.
Oh, absolutely not. I'm not proud of it at all.
Now, you're married to Opal, right?
Yes, sir.
How long have you been married?
September of 2016.
Why did you marry her?
We had such a connection, and there was so much to our lives that we had in common, and I think we got so hung up on planning and looking towards the future that we didn't focus on the now and taking care of what was, the problems that were being presented at that time.
You all have 4 children, both from previous relationships, right?
I have 2 biological and she has 2 biological.
So 4 together?
Yes, sir.
What was your marriage like before all this? Were you having problems?
We had some, relationship issues that there's some stressors that came into the relationship that weren't there when we first got married. And she had a really good job and she made way more money than I did. And at times it kind of felt like she was holding that over my head, that she was basically the breadwinner of the home.
Did it bother you? Did you feel less than because she did that?
I did, yes, sir. And I felt like that had been stripped of. I'd been stripped of that, and I had been.
This is your second wife, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you meet Opal while you were still married?
Yes, sir.
Did y'all start dating while you were still married?
My first wife and I had separated the second time, and that's when Opal and I started dating.
So you married Opal in 2016. When did you start having the desire to see other women?
It didn't really hit until October, November of 20.
Why then? What was it that triggered it then?
We had the issues going on at home, and I felt like I wasn't getting the respect or the attention or love that at home, and it caused me to create the dating profiles and just kind of see what was out there. I still had feelings for Opal, but something inside me was saying that it wasn't long before it was going to be over, that our marriage was on the rocks.
You're married to Opal. I mean, you're having trouble. Mm-hmm. But take me through that moment that you sat down and said, I'm married, but I'm going to create an online dating profile. How did you reason through that? What did you say to yourself? You're married, but you're sitting in front of a computer, which is a pretty public way to do this, and you set up something like, I don't know, this was your first one or whatever, but you set something up like this, looking for friendship, not looking for a hookup, sincere conversation, building trust and relationship first, looking forward to hearing from you. You put a picture with it.
Sir.
This is pretty public.
It is.
So take me through your thought process when you did this.
I was looking for friendship. I wasn't looking for that sexual relationship as far as a hookup. I wanted somebody to talk to, connect with on, I guess, my level.
But a female?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Were you afraid that somebody you knew would see this and go, well, hell, I know him. Yeah. That's the chief. He's married with kids.
I did. I had those thoughts, but I guess the fear wasn't there that I was going to get outed at that time.
So you did think somebody might see this?
Yeah. Oh, yes, sir. I did.
But it didn't, you didn't have any fear about it?
Not when I first created it.
Why not? What was your thinking?
When I would like other profiles of women, I looked further away. So I tried to keep some distance as to who I was going to talk to.
Yeah, but anybody could see it, is my thinking. And that's either ignorant or arrogant. It's one of the two. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. Because if you put it up, your next door neighbor could see it. I mean, somebody at the bank downtown could see it.
Yes, sir.
And when I say ignorant, I don't mean stupid. Ignorant is a lack of information about how something works. That's what ignorant means. Did you just not, I'm trying to figure out how you reasoned through that.
Yeah, looking back on it, it was stupid.
But at the time, that didn't register with you?
No, it didn't.
All right.
It didn't. I just thought that to build that relationship with people from a distance from where I was, that I wouldn't get caught. But I knew that in the back of my mind that there was that chance that somebody locally in the area was going to see that.
Okay. And the first woman that contacted you was who?
First one I talked to was Heather.
And how many girlfriends total did you have during the marriage? Connections, relationships, hookups that you had?
Well, you know, like anytime that you create one of those, there's several people that you communicate with. But as far as actual meeting somebody and seeing them in person, there was only 4. Heather, Katie, Christy, and Cecily. There was 4 that I actually met in person.
How many were you juggling at the same time?
I would talk to one or go meet one, and I might be talking to another one at the same time. There was no way to juggle all 4. I mean, it was like I said, I met Heather in November of 20. And so it was a process from November of 20 up until January.
Okay, but at one time, you were married to Opal, and then on the side, you had Heather, Christy, Brianna, Christy, Katie, and Cecily. There were 6 during that span of time from start to finish.
Right. Well, Brianna and one of the Christys,
there's 2 Christys, one with a K, one with CH.
One with the CH. We never actually met. We just talked on.
That was just.
Yes, sir.
Online.
Yes, Brianna and Christy.
Brianna and the CH Christy?
Yes, sir.
The other 4 were real world. Those 2 were online.
Right. We exchanged phone numbers, so we did talk through text and voice.
Oh, okay.
But as far as meeting in person, no, sir, we didn't. Brianna and Christy, we did not meet in person.
So there were 4 that you met in the real world, 2 online, and then Opal. That's 7. And this is across not a real big span of time. You're chief of police. Seriously, how did you work that out?
Before becoming police chief, Jason Collier was awarded the Medal of Valor by the state of Texas in 2016. This was for helping save the life of a fellow officer. Tonight, he's at the center of a criminal investigation. A woman who says she was Collier's fiancé is now warning a small Texas town their now former chief is living a double life. Former Stinnett, Texas Police Chief Jason Collier found himself on the other side of the law Thursday. The Texas Rangers arrested and booked Collier into jail for tampering with a government record. Cecily Steinmetz posted these pictures of the two on Facebook Tuesday. The Amarillo woman claims she was engaged to Collier before she learned he was married and alleges she's not the only one. Steinmetz's original post has been shared tens of thousands of times. In it, she writes, "He lied to me and presented me with fake annulment documents."
So there were 4 that you met in the real world, 2 online, and then Opal. That's 7. You're chief of police. Seriously, how did you work that out?
Looking back on it now, I have no idea. I don't know how I managed it, because getting up at 4 in the morning and to be at work at 5 in the morning, and I was talking with them throughout the day, and then when I went home at night, I would sparingly talk to them so I wouldn't, raise too much suspicion with Opal.
Okay, so, and I want to be sure that I have this right, because I don't want to make it something that it's not. You were married to Opal, and you had on the side Heather, Christy, Brianna, Christy, Katie, and Cecily. 2 were online, 4 were in the real world. But you were talking to all 6 of them.
Christy with the CH was actually the first one I started talking to back in November.
Right.
But Heather was the actual first one that I met in person.
Okay.
And Brianna was about that same time too.
Okay. And you said your wife made more money than you did. Did she finance any of this?
No.
So this was all your money? To meet 4 women in the real world, you had to do things with them, right? Take them to dinner. You actually went on an outing at times. Where did you get the money?
I was paid every other Friday, so I would go see them every other weekend. I would take care of the bills that were my responsibility, and the money that was left over I would use for the travel and meal or whatever.
Okay, so these 4 women that you saw in the real world, where would you go with them? What would you do with them?
Oh, mainly we'd go have a meal or something. And Christy, we would go shopping. I mean, we're not really to buy anything, but just to kill time. We went to different stores, and that was the same with Katie. When I seen her, we went just kind of antiquing. We weren't spending any money. That was basically all we did.
And so you were just out in public, just going around, but not in your hometown?
Right.
Okay. Well, when you met them in the real world, did you ever meet them in uniform?
Just the only one that's seen me, I believe, in uniform would have been Cecily.
Why her?
I'd gone over to Amarillo for a business related event, and I had stopped by her house, and that's why she's seen me in uniform. And then she came on that a day or 2 later. She had come to Stinnett and did a ride along with me.
Okay, that was Cecily that did the ride along?
Yes, sir.
Police Chief Jason Collier was arrested Thursday for tampering with a government document. Authorities say he gave one of the women that he was dating a fake document showing his marriage had been annulled. Collier is accused of having 2 fiancés and a wife. Allegations went public online this week when the women found out about each other.
Out of Heather, Christy, Brianna, Christy, Katie, and Cecily, how many of them did you propose to?
We would talk about, marriage issues and things, but actually coming out and saying, "Will you marry me?" I don't remember asking it. I know I never said that to anybody in person. We might have been jokingly saying it in a text or something like that. But
well, women tend to take those things seriously. When you say you're joking about it, but women tend to take that seriously. Did you lead any of them to believe that you were going to marry them? Would they conclude that you were serious about marrying them?
If any of them, it would have been Christy with the K. Her and I probably had the longest relationship, and we talked a little bit more in depth about what a wedding would look like for us.
Oh, wow.
But as far as actually proposing and, you know, buying a ring or anything like that, no, we never.
How many of them did you discuss how the wedding would look?
With Christy?
Was it just Christy?
I think with Cecily, we kind of talked a little bit about it, but nowhere near as in depth as what it was with Christy.
Okay. Were you thinking about divorcing Opal and marrying Christy with a K?
The divorce part with Opal kind of felt like it was going to happen at some point. As far as marrying Christy, we still had a ways to go before I would make that exact commitment to her.
Do you think she thought it was more serious than you thought it was?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Was that because you misled her or because she jumped to conclusions?
Probably both. I don't deny that I, you know, misled these women and was not honest with them about, of course, my relationship and with Opal, and you know, that's where I feel guilty, is because I misled them and led them to think that at that time I was in a position to where I could have a further relationship with them.
So they didn't know you were married?
No.
You didn't tell them, I'm married and cheating on my wife?
No.
This wasn't a tryst where you said, hey, let's just go be bad.
Yeah.
You told them, I'm available.
Right.
So you lied about your marital status, because they ask, right?
Heather did some research and found Opal.
Mm-hmm.
Christy, I don't believe really, because she was so far away, she didn't really have the connections to find that information, I believe. And
where did Opal think you were when you were with these women?
You know, I'd misled her, lied to her as well, that I was working undercover, and I was, you know, traveling to these other towns working.
Undercover in other towns?
Yes, sir. Kind of like a private undercover. Yes, sir. Not specifically for, you know, an agency.
Well, how's that work?
Oh, it doesn't. That was just part of the cover. That's what I was doing.
And that's just because being a police officer that fit with the narrative of your life, right?
You know, I'd been in law enforcement for 22 years, and I had a really good career. You know, I'd never been disciplined or written up, and I had the respect because of my integrity and work ethic. That she knew that and believed my story.
That's one of the oldest lines in the world. I mean, it's like from the Hollies song, Saturday night I was downtown working for the FBI. I mean, you know, you say, I'm undercover here. And she believed you?
She did. I think towards the end, I think she was starting to see some holes in it.
What else did you do to mislead her?
When Cecily found out that I was married, I had to come clean with Opal I told her that I was, you know, doing the undercover gig, and that I was talking to a CI, and that's why she was trying to contact her.
You got your wife on the phone to talk to your mistress to convince her that you weren't married.
Right. Because you know, the friend that they had mutually, I believe she contacted her through messaging and said, you know, yeah, we're not married, or I don't remember exact words, but yes, I convinced Opal to contact her, to, you know, again, that it was part of the undercover thing. I needed her information, and Opal believed me and contacted her.
And Opal said what?
She told her that we were not married anymore.
Okay, so when you get called out over a social media picture, and you didn't know she was going to post that?
No, she had talked about it, but I was trying to convince her not to post that.
But she did.
She did.
Friend sees it, tells Opal and her, So she's questioning it. Did Opal question it? Did she say a friend called me and said they saw a picture of you with some woman?
Yes, yes, sir.
She asked you about it?
Yes, sir.
And is that when you said, oh, well, actually, that's right, and I need you to call that woman?
Again, you know, lied to her and convinced her that it was part of the undercover thing that I was doing, that I had to get closer to the information.
Okay. And what kind of case was it? Did you tell her it was drugs or?
No, I didn't give her any details about what was.
Told her you couldn't?
Right. It was confidential.
It was confidential? Yeah. Yeah, it was confidential.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's what you told her, is this was a confidential informant that you were talking to, right? This is part of this undercover sting or whatever that you were working on in another town?
Right. When she was first notified and she made that phone call, yes, that's.
She thought this was a part of your undercover sting,
right?
Confidential informant, that it was going to blow your cover if she didn't do this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long had you been with Cecily at this point?
We actually exchanged phone numbers and started texting and talking on January the 13th.
Uh-huh.
And I want to say that was January 19th or 20th, so approximately a week.
You got called out pretty soon.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, you posted an apology to Cecily. Mm-hmm. Let's look at it and see what it is.
Hey, sorry, I just feel like the biggest piece of so sorry. Didn't mean to hide anything or lie to you. Sorry. I'm so sorry. Please just want you to forgive me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So this is before everything unraveled.
Right.
Now, when you got Opal to call her and essentially bail you out of that, did you think I'm good now, or what'd you think?
Well, later on when I talked to Opal, she said, okay, we got it smoothed over, everything's okay. And I talked to Cecily, she said the same thing. So I thought at that point it was in the clear.
But you also gave Cecily some fake proof of an annulment. Why'd you do that if it had been cleared up by Opal? You're chief of police. You're supposed to be the guy that is the paragon of trust. And you're weaving this web of deceit and lies. How has that affected your community?
Oh, it hurt them, because I went in there and I worked with integrity and ethics and everything. As far as my job, I did it ethically. And then for them to see this side that's come out, it hurt the community. And I apologize to everybody in the community for what I did to them. Maybe not directly, but losing that public trust that I had built with them. So,
you were fired from your job?
I resigned, yes, sir.
In lieu of being fired?
I was honorably discharged from the agency.
Were they going to fire you?
Not to my knowledge, no, sir.
So you believe if you hadn't resigned, you'd still be chief of police?
I knew, because of what I had done, I had violated that public trust, and I knew that it was probably in the best interest of the agency and the community that I resign.
Did you do any of this on job time?
Every once in a while I would talk to, when I was on a break or something, I would talk to them or send them a message or something like that.
Did you drive your car to Amarillo?
The one time that I went to Amarillo, it was going to be job related, and at lunchtime, that's when I'd gone to Cecily's.
This is a ring video of one of the many times she says he would visit her while still on the clock. Not only that, but she says he had met her family, had their picture up in his office, and even went as far as asking her to pick out an engagement ring.
Was the ride along in violation, or is that acceptable?
No, sir, it was acceptable. It was we had policy in place that civilian ride-alongs were allowed.
I don't think they contemplate that being your mistress.
No.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a public service.
Again, that's where I say I violated that public trust with them.
Well, you went from being chief of police with a wife to 6 girlfriends to being single and having no girlfriends, no wife to go home to. What's your biggest regret?
The whole thing. I was doing a good job and I violated everything, with Opal, with my kids. I broke trust bonds with all of them, and now I've hurt them, and I regret it all. If I could go back and change it, I would change every bit of it.
Have they talked to you about the embarrassment that they felt from the headlines? Because your kids have had to read these. Her children have had to read these. She has had to read these. You've had to read these.
I hate the embarrassment that I brought upon my kids, my family, again, the community.
Well, the headlines go on, and that's embarrassing. And then this social media post that went up from Cecily. Chief Jason Collier is living a double, triple life. I was his girlfriend until yesterday. He lied to me and presented me with fake annulment documents when I found out he was married. I also found out about a second girlfriend, Christy, last night. He has lied to us, our children, and asked us both to marry him. He is a poor representative of your town. He would also visit me in Amarillo when he was on shift. We just returned from vacation in Taos on Sunday. Meanwhile, his other girlfriend was told he was on work assignment in Portland, Oregon.
That was the main one that she posted that outed me when...
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You had gone on vacation to Taos. Where did your family think you were?
Again, that
was the undercover?
Yes, sir.
And you told Christy with a K that you were on assignment in Portland?
Yes, sir.
And she says you asked her to marry you.
No, I never asked either one of them to marry me.
But you talked about what the wedding would look like.
We talked about what weddings would look like and everything. Yes, sir.
But you do agree that you misled them about that?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
It is so cold, babe. Hope you're having a good day. Thinking about you. I'll talk to you a little bit. Bye.
According to Cecily, Jason not only lied about being married, but he lied about who he was and what he did. In an exclusive interview given to DailyMail.com, Cecily says he spun a web of deceit from day one.
I met him through Facebook dating. He made a really big deal that he'd been divorced since 2016 and he was finally ready to get out and have a relationship. He just disarms you. He's very soft-spoken, just very kind and just very calm.
I like to chat with you, so anyway, I'll torture you with a sunglass pig now. So
everything felt really good on the phone. He seemed very polite, respectful, and I thought with his job that he would definitely be trustworthy, not just a police officer, but a chief, and I thought they definitely are held to a higher standard, so I thought I should be able to believe him. We met here in Amarillo for dinner. It went great. He told me that he had been in Lubbock for a meeting with the Secret Service because he told me he had a side job being dispatched to like national emergencies like the Nashville bombing, the Portland and Minneapolis riots, and he had me completely convinced of that. Said that he had that meeting with the Secret Service on that Saturday, all day. Stayed the night in Lubbock. Sunday was gonna help his disabled brother for the day. He said he was going to school to get his master's degree. Towards the end of dinner, when he had the receipt, he asked me to actually sign my name with my maiden name and my current name, which I kept my married name when I got divorced in 2017. Because he said he wanted to look at the handwriting. He told me that he also was trained by the FBI to do handwriting analysis. He could tell that the way I signed my current name, that I was completely detached from that name and that relationship by the way it was slanted. I didn't really understand that. And he said that with my maiden name, that I was obviously much more connected to that name, the way that one was slanted. And he said that made him happy because his big concern was that I would go back to my ex-husband. He told me that he had been taught by the handwriting analysis person who analyzed the JonBenet Ramsey ransom note. I feel overwhelmed, embarrassed, humiliated, angry, sad. It's still hard for me to reconcile who he was to me and who he actually was. It was just every single thing out of his mouth was a lie.
Do you have a problem with boundaries? Managing relationships and boundaries?
I believe so, yes, sir.
I mean, if somebody shows you attention, because you describe yourself kind of like you pet a dog, it'll follow you anywhere.
Yeah.
Like if somebody scuffs your ears up, it's like, hell, I'll follow you anywhere. And these women that gave you acceptance, paid attention to you, it's like even 3, 4 at a time, you tell them what they want to hear because you want their acceptance and attention.
I think I have that dependency where I feel like I need that attention. I don't know if it's exactly to say I'm worthy or anything like that, but that I need that. I guess I have kind of like a codependency of needing somebody like that.
And let me ask you, is there a qualitative difference here? And I just want to be clear, because you've got a couple of these women say that you proposed to them, and you say, I didn't propose to them, but I clearly misled them and discussed wedding plans with them. You recognize there's no qualitative difference there.
Right, yeah.
That's just semantics.
Yeah, I mean, because
you clearly misled them.
Oh, yes, definitely.
You clearly led them to believe there was a union in the future. Whether you call it proposal or not, you were discussing wedding plans with these women. To
a certain degree, yes, sir, we did. We discussed it. Like I said, we never went through, I guess, what you would call a formal process of purchasing an engagement ring. I understand what you're saying.
Are you making that point because you think it makes it better?
Oh,
I mean, you either misled them or you didn't.
Oh,
Did you mislead them?
Absolutely misled them.
You did mislead them. And that's my point, whether you got down on one knee or not, you misrepresented yourself to these women as to who you were availability-wise, that you weren't married. You lied to them straight up. You lied to them by saying, hey, let's talk about what the wedding would look like, and I'd go anywhere with you in a heartbeat. That is clearly misrepresenting who you are and what your future plans are. That is a bald-faced lie to multiple women at the same time. Do you still want to be with any of these women?
No, sir.
Any of these 6?
No, sir.
Why not? I mean, you were ready to go off with Cecily anywhere, anytime.
Yeah.
If she would have you, you don't want her?
No, I don't.
You don't want any of them?
No, sir. I lied to them, and no.
Do you have anything to say to any of them?
If they would accept it, I would apologize to them, and I'm sorry for lying to them, misleading them, and a few of them I did meet their kids, and I'm sorry to the kids as well that I became part of their life, basically, and they looked up to me as well.
There are people on social media right now that are saying, you haven't learned your lesson, that you're back on dating sites already. Is that true?
I did create a profile, yes, sir. And like you said earlier, I went from having everything to having nothing. And again, that was part of my brain at that time, thinking, I got to have some sort of attention and have that person to be able to talk to.
So how did you describe yourself on the dating profile?
Pretty much the same way. That I was just looking for friendship.
You're married?
We're in the process of the divorce, yes, sir.
What it says is looking for friendship, work on my family ranch, 2 kids, going through a divorce. At least you're honest about going through a divorce. And women are passing this around, warning each other about you.
Yeah.
I find it pretty shocking that you're already reaching for another relationship. If you know much about me, if you've followed me at all, you know I'm a very outspoken advocate for law enforcement. And I don't know how anyone can be in law enforcement and see the things that law enforcement people see over and over again. Whether it's murder and mayhem or domestic violence or abandoned and abused children or whatever, the incidence of PTSD among that population is absolutely through the roof. I think it's highly underreported. I think it's highly untreated. I know that you have received the Medal of Valor in the state of Texas for courage in the line of duty, putting yourself in harm's way to benefit fellow officers. You've had officers around you shot in the face. You've seen things folks just shouldn't have to see. And I'm not trying to excuse anything that you've done, but I also, in fairness, have to acknowledge the fact that you've been through a lot and you've distinguished yourself along the way, and it's come at a high price, and I think it's taken a toll. Do you consider yourself mentally and emotionally impaired? Did that contribute to what you've done here?
I believe so, because this is not the person that my parents raised me to be. I came from a very good home, loving home, and I know that if both of my parents were alive today, they would be extremely upset with me.
And that's my question, because you came from a good, solid background and family. You have distinguished yourself in law enforcement throughout your career. How did you get from there to making such poor decisions to humiliate yourself and your family with these horrible choices? How did you get from that to this?
I honestly don't understand. I don't know how I got to this point.
I don't think that's true. I think you do know how you got from there to here. If we could hit the reset button, and there's power in forgiveness. We're going to restore you to chief of police. It's going to say, bad chapter, but you got a long history. Let's get back to work. Would you predict, thank God, and not screw it up?
No, I would definitely appreciate that, but I would be fearful that it would happen again.
I don't think you'd make it a week. You're on a dating site now. You're not out of this quagmire. You got criminal charges against you right now. And you've got a divorce, and you got 200,000 women in a Facebook group dogging on your ass, and you're posting yourself up on a dating site, and women are passing it around like you've got Ebola, saying, hey, warning, warning, toxic, 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 and you're not through blowing this mess up before you're getting into the next one. That's the worst possible thing you can do. And I'll tell you what I think. Number one, I do not think you are an evil human being. I think you have made really immature choices. I think you have distinguished yourself in law enforcement, and I thank you for your service. And if I had bad guys coming at my house and you were the officer that showed up on the scene, I would have every confidence that you would discharge your responsibility selflessly and professionally. But I think personally, you are relationship dependent and have so many unfinished emotional needs that you would be a complete train wreck in terms of how you handle things going forward. You don't need to be in a relationship right now. The most important relationship in your life is the one you have with yourself, because it's the longest relationship you'll ever have. It's the most intense relationship you'll ever have. And you aren't being honest with Jason. You don't have the ability to put boundaries up. You got caught this time. You were connected to other women before your first marriage was over. And you're involved with a bunch of women here before this marriage is over. And you say, well, okay, now I'm on a dating site again because I'm getting a divorce, but you don't have a divorce.
Right.
You need to finish one thing before you do another. And you need to do a relationship autopsy on the marriage that you're getting out of before you start another relationship, and ask myself, what did I do to contaminate the relationship I'm in? What did I do to contaminate? Well, I cheated, I lied, I manipulated, I was deceitful, I betrayed, I used, abused. I don't have enough fingers to list all the things you did to poison the marriage that you're in right now. And you will do those things with the next person you meet if you don't take care of those issues right now. You felt emasculated because she made more money than you, and so you needed validation. You were morbidly obese for much of your life, and so you felt looked over and judged and further emasculated, so you lost weight and you thought, oh, hey, they noticed me now, so I got some catching up to do. I want female validation. And you would just take it from whoever would give it to you without regard for prior commitments and realistic future with these women. This is going to hit a wall. I am chief of police and I've got a dating profile up and I'm married. This woman's posting a picture up and you've got text, I love you, follow you anywhere, and you're married. If anybody thinks they can get away with that, then some village is missing their idiot. Anybody could see that that's doomed. Yep. But you're like, hey, no problem. No. And when you get caught, you get your wife to lie. You need to recognize my problem recognition skills, me, Jason, my problem recognition skills are not good. My ability to put up boundaries in a relationship are not good. My moral compass is spinning, so I need to ask myself why. I'm really fascinated to talk to the two of you because y'all are women and have the women's perspective on this story. What was your reaction as you pieced all the story together, Lori?
I could kind of see where Jason was coming from, but then I could sit back and go, what are these women thinking? 3 days and I love you? I'm watching one of the women, you know, after the second date, profess her undying love. So as a woman, I'm like, wow, does that happen? I don't understand undying love after 2 dates.
What did y'all find the most shocking part of the story from the female perspective?
Starting with the first wife, he was kind of shopping around for a new replacement for her before and that's how he found Opal. Well, now that I feel like everything turned south with Opal, I felt like he was shopping around again, and this was all kind of trial and error to see who was going to be his next replacement.
I think that's part of the relationship dependency. What struck you most about it?
When I found out that there was an incident where Opal's son hurt Jason's daughter, and he didn't leave at that point. As a mom, I needed to know why. And I could see that that was where his internal struggle. He loves his wife, he loves his daughter, and he was dependent upon Opal. And to put this hurt that happened to his daughter kind of on the back burner and do an internal battle with Opal over it, because Opal's trying to protect her child, Jason's trying to protect his child, and eventually that bomb blew. And I think that had a lot to do with why Jason started down the road that he started on, because he didn't know how to get out.
Was any of what you did vindictiveness because of that?
I don't know if it was vindictiveness because I was trying to get back at her, and I understand being protective of your kid. And that was, you know, one of the issues also that hurt our marriage.
Did she handle it the way you thought she should?
No.
Why do y'all think you undertook this story? Why this story?
When I saw the viral posts for the first time, the part that stopped me in my tracks was when I saw women reaching out to Jason. Somehow they got his phone number and they were putting that on these groups. Look, I got him to talk to me. He's back on the market. I don't know what pulled me there, but I reached out to him because I felt I wanted to help him. Mm-hmm. I felt like the punishment didn't meet the crime. Did he deserve to lose his wife? Yes. But did he deserve his world to be blown up because he cheated? I didn't think so.
Were you responding to some of these women not knowing what was going on?
Some of them I did talk to, texting, but yeah, I did. I I talked to a few people, and I just thought they were being genuine.
Why did you agree to have the book written?
This was all a huge mistake, and unfortunately I can't go back, but hopefully I can be an example for somebody who's going through this.
Why do y'all think women need to read this book?
I don't think there is a true hero in this book, but I don't think anyone in this book is blameless.
But they are victimized in that they did not know he was married. Now,
absolutely.
Their judgment in speeding along or whatever is one thing, but the misrepresentation on his part of not telling them he was married
Correct.
and all certainly puts them in a bad spot.
When I met Dr. Dunch, he was very confident about what he could do, that he had bragged that he was the best back surgeon that there had ever been.
I asked Dr. Dunch how many times he had performed this particular surgery, and he said over 600 times.
We agreed to have surgery, and he said that he could do things that other people could not do. He was going to put these devices in my spine to fuse it. After the surgery, he said that everything had gone great, but I was no better. I was possibly even worse.
Dr. Dunch told us that Ken needed a second surgery.
The doctor said that he could do a surgery through my side that would fix the pain that I was in.
It would take about an hour and a half. Ken was in the operating room for about 4 hours. I was starting to get worried. He was in a lot of trouble.
So I woke up about a day and a half later. I was laying there in intensive care, and the first thing I realized is my legs were just burning like there was a bonfire on them. Dr. Dunch, he was a quack and a crazy man.
Dr. Dunch almost killed my husband.
The most horrifying thing is that he had already had 2 patients that had died, and that he had had like 4 that was quadriplegics, and we knew none of this. As a result of 2 botched surgeries, I'm confined to a scooter. I can only shuffle or walk about 150 steps. My wife, Glenda, has basically become my caregiver.
There have been a lot of days that I wanted to change my name. Glenda, can you get me this? Glenda, can you do this? Glenda, can you go get that? I think it is apparent that Dr. Dunch didn't know what he was doing, and I don't think the lack of knowledge stopped him. I think it was greed.
I have nothing to say to Christopher Dunch. I just hope I never see his face again.
Tell me, you're good for about 150 steps max now.
That's it.
And the rest of the time you're confined to the scooter.
Or a chair.
Or a chair, right. Now, how did you find Dr. Dunch?
A friend of mine had a motorcycle accident, and he had been to this clinic, and they had helped him. And he knew I had a back problem, was having quite a bit of pain. And he referred me to this particular clinic, and we went in, and Dr. Dunch was the only one there that was taking Medicare. Then his nurse got in touch with me and said that he was setting his own practice up.
If you look at his resume on paper, it's really impressive.
I asked him, how many times have you done this surgery?
He said 600 times, right?
He said over 600 times, and he was very agitated that I asked him that.
Really? Did he have a God complex?
He thought he was it. He said, he told us he was the best doctor in Dallas. There was nobody better than him. He could do things nobody else could do. And he didn't like for you to ask questions. He liked to do all the talking.
Yeah. He said to you at one point, what do you want from me? I did your first surgery for free. Where did that come into the relationship?
Well, my husband was his first patient.
Right.
And we now know that he didn't have his malpractice insurance in place. Medicare does not cover surgeries or any other care unless the doctor has malpractice insurance. So he didn't get paid, neither did the hospital. And then after the second surgery, 6 months later, when we finally met up with him at our choice, because we tracked him down, and Ken started telling him how bad he was, what a shape he'd left him in, he got up, put his hand on the doorknob to leave, and he turned around and looked at us, and he said, what do you want from me? After all, I did your first surgery for free.
Through discovery, there's a email that's turned up that he sent to his staffer. Y'all have seen that now, but we'll share it with the viewers. He said, and these are quotes, "I'm so far outside the box that the earth is small. Anyone close to me thinks I likely am something between God, Einstein, and the Antichrist. I am ready to leave the love and kindness and goodness and patience that I mix with everything else that I am and become a cold-blooded killer. Never, ever blank argue with me in front of anyone. What I'm being is what I am, one of a kind, a blank stone cold killer that can buy or own or steal or ruin or build whatever he wants."
After this surgery began, I started getting the impression that Dr. Dunn didn't really know what he was doing. Everyone involved in that case, from the scrub techs to the x-ray tech to myself to the anesthesiologist, gave each other looks many times during that case because we just didn't understand what he was doing. Tragically, what happened in the end is Florella Brown died less than 24 hours after her surgery. The following day, Dr. Dunn was set to perform a spinal fusion on Mary Eford. I was the operating room nurse for patient Mary Eford as well. As he was working and he started putting in screws, which are meant to go into the spine, every single person in that OR told him that's in soft tissue. And his response was, "I know where it's at, I can see it, it's in the spine." The next day, a new surgeon was brought in, Dr. Henderson, and he was going to perform a second surgery on Mary Eford to hopefully repair what Dr. Dunch had done.
When I got to the operating room, the operative field kind of looked like a bomb went off. There was a loose screw that was not stabilizing anything. The screw was penetrating the spinal sac. There was spinal fluid leaking out of the sac. We discovered that the L5 nerve root had been amputated. Discovering what he had done and not done, I was more concerned that he was an imposter, that he was not a neurosurgeon, that he was not a surgeon. He may not even be a doctor. That's how bad this was.
Now, Kyle, you say that Dr. Dunch left the room with patient Mary exposed on the table. Does that ever occur in any other procedures you've been involved in?
No, it's really rare for that to happen. In an emergency situation, it might have, but he did that because he didn't take care of Florella Brown before starting surgery on Mary Eford.
Right. And you say that when Dr. Dunch came back into the OR, you told him the screw was in the wrong place. How did he respond?
Well, everyone in the OR was telling him it was in the wrong spot. I mean, anyone who's been in the OR for a day can look at an x-ray and see when it's sitting in soft tissue. And his response to us was, "I'm looking at the screw and it's sitting in the spine."
So he just said the x-ray was wrong?
Yeah. He said the x-ray was lying and we were all mistaken.
I'd like to have Dr. Henderson walk us through exactly where Dr. Dunch missed the mark during Ken's surgery, a procedure he claimed would give Ken more stability by adding implants. And I have a spine model to show us where Dr. Dunch should have operated on Ken versus where he actually did cut in to Ken. Now, Dr. Henderson, help us through here. He was supposed to go in through the L4-5 space, correct?
Correct. He had stenosis at that level, which is a constriction of the nerves inside the spinal canal.
The proper procedure is to put an implant in here.
You put a cylinder type device in there that actually distracts the bones.
Right.
And makes more room for the nerves inside the spinal canal.
Yeah. We're looking at the x-ray now, and I believe this is after Ken's first procedure. What are we seeing here?
Anything that's dark on that x-ray is bone. Or in the case of the two images on the right, those are metal. So you can see that those metal implants, those two circular implants, are in a very bright spot, and that is fatty tissue.
How do you get to become credentialed as a neurosurgeon in a hospital and not know that those implants go in the spine and not in the fatty tissue next to the spine.
I mean, I seriously was concerned whether or not he was a trained neurosurgeon, whether he was a surgeon at all, and whether or not he'd even gone to medical school.
After Ken's second surgery, we wondered, were there other patients? Kay Van Way was an attorney who represented 7 or 8 patients that were Dr. Dunch's.
We became clients. We just wanted to try to stop Dunch.
A lawsuit was filed. It went to trial.
The gallery at the courtroom during the trial was filled with Dr. Dunch's patients. There were people in crutches, scooter chairs.
Dr. Dunch was convicted and was sentenced to life in prison. I cannot forgive Dunch. I don't think he's asked for forgiveness, nor has he said that he's sorry for the harm that he's done people.
Well, we've been talking about Dr. Christopher Dunch. He made national headlines after harming some of his patients. Now, my next guest represented 12 of these victims and is here today to advocate for change. So joining us from Dallas is board-certified personal injury trial lawyer with over 30 years experience, attorney Kay Van Way. So Kay, thank you so much for joining us here. This is horrific. You were at the criminal trial, and the jury was out like 30 minutes.
A little over 30 minutes.
Yeah, it takes that long to read the charge.
That's true.
So there wasn't much deliberation.
When they went out, Glenn and I came out of the courtroom, and I told her, I says, it's going to be between 30 minutes and an hour, because you could read the jury. They were, some of them was crying.
Yeah. Kay, I'm so glad that these victims found you and that you advocated for them.
We had to file lawsuits, and we conducted discovery, and we litigated, and we got the cases ready for trial. Ultimately, those that we sued were Dr. Dunch and the various hospitals that gave him privileges to operate. And in each instance, those cases resolved.
We actually have a statement from Baylor Scott and White Health, which is formerly Baylor Regional Medical Center at Plano. They say, Dr. Dunch, who began his career in North Texas with impressive credentials and glowing recommendations, in the end hurt families, co-workers, and the trust we all hold in physicians. Out of respect for the patients and families involved and the privileged nature of a number of details, we will continue to limit our comments. There is nothing more important to us than serving our community through high-quality, trusted health care.
Since my husband was the first patient at Baylor Hospital in Plano, and then shortly after that, Kelly Martin died, and then Jerry had that surgery, left him a quadriplegic. If they had done their job and stopped Dr. Dunch then, instead of giving him a letter of recommendation to go to another surgery hospital, 80% of these patients wouldn't be in the shape they're in now.
Many hospitals are skirting the law. They would rather not cause trouble for the doctor or potentially themselves. They'd rather just kick the can down the road, make the doctor become another hospital's problem.
I've known Dr. Christopher Dunch for nearly 40 years. My son Jerry and Chris were lifelong friends. They became friends in grade school. Chris was like a second son to me. Years ago, my son Jerry was in a car accident and he was in constant pain, needing surgery in his neck. My son thought Chris was qualified to do the surgery that he needed. Chris had described it to me as, I will perform the surgery, he'll go home, I'll prop a few pillows around him and he'll be fine. The day of the surgery, I spoke to Chris several times. When the surgery was over, Chris said that he had sent Jerry to ICU, and I was alarmed. He informed me, I'm the chief surgeon here, I can do whatever I want. My world turned upside down. I thought something is terribly wrong. When I got to the hospital, within minutes, Jerry flatlined. I knew Jerry was paralyzed, quadriplegic, that he would not be moving again. Jerry said, Mom, Chris has done an 8-ball of cocaine before he performed my surgery. I saw Chris, he was trying to explain things to me, and it did not make sense. I hired an attorney to make sure that Chris was not allowed to be around him. I demanded that Chris be given a drug test. I sent a letter to the medical board. I have never spoken to Chris again. From that moment on, Jerry's and my life was never the same. When Chris went to jail, my heart was broken. Chris does not deserve this. Chris is sick, mentally ill. About a year ago, Jerry had a stroke. A month ago, Jerry ended up back on life support. Jerry would have never wanted to live like that. I had to take him off of life support. Jerry's been gone for about 3 weeks. I know he's free. I feel like I've lost Chris and Jerry both.
You say that you don't blame Chris for what happened. Tell me how you reasoned through that.
All of this was, Chris didn't want to be a doctor. He wanted to be a scientist. And his teachers knew this. He went on through medical school. He shouldn't have ever been let out of medical school because he wasn't qualified. He was a wonderful scientist, but a doctor, he was, I now know, never qualified.
But you do know that he did know right from wrong, and he did, by his own free will and conscious choice, arrogantly, belligerently, without remorse, go out and victimize people, including your son.
Yes. I think all that was caused from a mental illness. And I think at some point he just snapped. And I think that time was gradually coming. I didn't see it. I wasn't around him when he was in Dallas, but I think it just all exploded at once.
You blame the system for not containing him.
Absolutely.
Well, you've read the memos and stuff where he says he's a stone cold killer and somewhere between Einstein and God. How do you square those things up with him not being responsible?
All of those things were, I discovered them after all of this happened, not before he did the surgery.
Yeah, of course. Oh, of course. But you know them now. Does that change how you feel about this man that you described as your kind of second son?
I know how mental illness acts.
Well, and I think you're right about the mental illness part of this. I mean, you said your question for me was he a psychopath? And my answer to that is undoubtedly. I think he was narcissistic. I think he was a psychopath or sociopath, whatever term you want to use to describe that set of behaviors. And Kay, as Linda says, if somebody stepped up and rang the warning bell on this, a lot of lives and a lot of suffering would be saved, right?
The things that you would need to know as a good consumer are not available to the public. And
Right.
This is something that we must change. We have to get the secrecy out of healthcare.
It's got to be more transparency.
Yes.
Well, coming up, we'll meet one of Dr. Dunch's defense attorneys, and what she has to say may surprise.
Like me, Dr. Dunch went through a prolonged surgical training, very rigorous and very difficult to complete. How someone like that was totally and completely incompetent and dangerous and knew he was and was allowed to continue operating despite having so many devastating clinical problems is really unbelievable.
Doctor, I just said before the break that unfortunately, because there's not great transparency, and oftentimes we as patients don't know how to evaluate a doctor. How do patients know the good from the bad?
It's very difficult. The truth is, the party line we always tell you when we get asked that question is check the internet, check for board certification, check for the medical board. But as you can see from this case, none of that was there. I think you have to look at this, what we call the sniff test. There was something going on. They sort of had a feeling, and that sniff test, that smell test can be very accurate. The other thing is, if a doctor has been at a hospital for a short period of time, why? And they've been at this hospital for 2 years, and they were at another hospital for another 2 years. That's a very significant sign. They've been bumped along, no transparency, and no disclosure.
It's not rude to get a second opinion. It's not rude to ask, How do I know you're the right person? And when you ask even the first question, you got a dressing down. Big red flag, right?
When there's been a complication, when somebody's been botched, even a very good doctor doesn't necessarily want to address that complication. You'd rather just sweep it under the carpet. I'll see you in a month. Hopefully it'll go away. If you have a complication, go seek another opinion. Early referral is key to making sure that complication doesn't turn into something much worse.
Yeah, and everybody's asking, who does this kind of thing? Who could do this? And so I want to add someone to this conversation who says there's a lot to that in answering that question. And I'm talking about Candace DeLong. She is a former FBI criminal profiler who has analyzed hundreds of crimes of interpersonal violence and has interviewed dozens of killers. She's also a former head nurse at Northwestern University's Institute of Psychiatry. Additionally, she is the host of a new show on Discovery Plus, The Deadly Type, where she interviews killers face-to-face and teaches viewers how to spot one. Joining us virtually from New Mexico is my good friend Candace DeLong. Candace, thank you for joining us today.
Happy to help. This is an amazing case.
It is. So let's talk about the question. Who is this guy?
Well, I think the biggest problem, two actually combined to create this particular person that I would call a monster. And I say that because he is not mentally ill. He has a couple of mental disorders as I see it. One is a psychopath. Hallmark of a psychopath, they feel no empathy, guilt, or remorse if they do anything wrong. He's also a narcissist, and I would go so far as to say a malignant narcissist. And what I mean by that is his narcissism is so intense, it blinds him to doing the right thing. Rather, he prefer to feed his narcissism, his ego, and it makes him dangerous.
A North Texas neurosurgeon who botched surgeries on purpose.
Dr. Dunch permanently maimed 33 patients.
I asked him, how many times have you done this surgery?
He said 600 times.
My husband was his first patient.
New Dr. Phil. Check your local listings.
Well, today I am putting you on red alert because there is a crisis in our country, and I'm talking about drug and alcohol addiction. It's an epidemic, and it is killing and it is destroying families. No one is immune. There are over 28 million people who are addicted, some as young as 12 years old. But most shocking is that over 80% of those addicted never receive treatment. Now, I started the Dr. Phil Show 16 years ago, and the first question I was asked is, what's this show going to be about? And I said I was going to dedicate this show to shining a spotlight on what I called the silent epidemics that were plaguing families in America. This is one of those epidemics. Now, over the years, we have received thousands and thousands of emails from parents, siblings, spouses, and children pleading desperately for help to save somebody they love from drugs and alcohol. I'm proud to say that we have helped nearly 500 guests with inpatient treatment for substance abuse. That's over $28 million in resources provided to these folks over the years. Never before in the history of television has a show ever done anything like that. But how are these guests doing now? Well, today we're going to find out. First, you'll remember sisters Valine, Amanda, and Tiffany. They were all addicted to heroin, and they were using together. They were triggering each other, sparking each other. Three sisters said doing heroin had created an unbreakable bond between them. And as long as they were together, nothing would or could keep them from using. Take a look. You'll remember them.
I feel high now.
Yeah.
Really high.
My daughters are heroin users.
They're junkies. You sit there, you know, like a bunch of idiots.
Those highs are... When we wake up in the morning, the first thing on our minds is to get high. It's like I'm married to it.
As soon as it like goes through my veins, I just feel 100 times better.
You're high right now, right?
Yeah.
Where'd you get the drugs?
Jersey.
We brought it with us.
You brought them with you? How did you transport them?
Luggage. Now I am going to go meet the 65-year-old man. This is how I make my money.
I told them, you do not let anybody treat you guys like a piece of
Never thought that I would do that. I hate these guys, and this is what I resort to.
I should have kicked them out. There's no doubt about it. I don't care
You
where they went.
think? Look at this. This is your home, Dad.
They beat me down.
Because you are weak. Grow a pair and be a man. Here's what has to happen. You're going to different places away from each other. You can turn this around. Well, it's been 3 years, and they are here, and I am proud to say 1, 2, 3, all 3 of them are sober. Please welcome Fallon, Amanda, and Tiffany. Come on out. It's a happier day than the first time I met the 3 of you, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you had a little different look in your eye when I met you last time. So, Fallon, it's been almost 3 years. Where do you think you would be if you had not come here?
I believe I'd be dead, or wishing I was dead. My life has changed so much for the better.
Yeah, life is good today. I want to thank you for having us back here. You know, it's definitely a different experience. And I mean, life, like I can actually live life today, you know, and experience it.
We deal with real people in the real world in real life. And this isn't always a success-only journey, right? And you've had a hiccup along the way, correct?
Yeah.
And you had a relapse, what, 3-4 months ago?
Yeah, almost 3 months
After
ago.
over 2 years of sobriety.
Yeah.
You're now back on track. You're 3 months clean and sober again at this point. I'm proud that you're back on the road, and I'm behind you 100%. What was your experience like being on the show?
You know, I lived my life just trying to get what I wanted from everybody around me. And then when filming started, and then when I got here, it was the end of that, and I didn't know how to function without doing that.
You were very annoyed.
I wasn't getting over on anybody anymore.
It was like having a babysitter, pretty much. Someone was with us at all times, checking on us, and it was annoying.
Yeah, I've dealt with you guys before, and we know if we don't watch you and watch you close, you're very innovative.
Just got out of jail, so I was like, looking
Yeah.
He was always watching me.
Yeah, so it kind of felt like being back in jail.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, you guys, I am so proud of you, and I wanted people to see you guys now because they're sitting there thinking, I can't do it, but they can do it, can't they?
Absolutely. Yes, for sure.
Billy, what do you say to somebody that's sitting there right now saying, this is too hard, I can't do it?
My life is amazing now. All I did was I listened and I tried.
Well, you guys are beautiful, and thank you for being here. I really do.
Thank you.
All right, one guest I get asked about constantly is Brandy. She had been arrested at least 12 times, once for shooting up the bedroom of a man she dated with a .38 revolver. Now, her ex-husband, Victor, insisted Brandy's problems were all alcohol-related, but Brandy disagreed.
Lord have mercy.
All of my ex-wife's problems stem from alcohol and excessive drinking.
Do I drink every day? No. Do I drink every other day? Yeah. Every time I drink, I break out in handcuffs. I mean, proof's in the pudding.
Have you been drunk since you got here?
Yes.
Do you remember exposing yourself to my male staff?
No. Which one?
Oh, Jesus.
About a year ago now, you're in a restaurant calling somebody a whore face and saying, "Here I am, bitch. You want a piece of me?" in front of your child. Good job,
But I didn't
Mom.
have great parenting.
Stop talking. You think you can dominate people and flap your mouth? You need to listen. You're an alcoholic.
I think I am.
You need serious, intensive professional help with this.
It is an opportunity, but I don't trust you.
The feeling's mutual.
Be part of the solution or get the hell out of my way.
Everything is completely different in my life since coming to the show. I have over 110 days in sobriety. I look like a different person and I feel like a completely different person. It's amazing. I regret how I behaved in front of the producers. I wanted alcohol really bad. I kept asking the staff members to get me champagne, wine. They wouldn't do it. I was in shock when Dr. Phil brought up the flashing incident. It made me see who I was at the time. I am completely grateful to Dr. Phil and his staff for everything that they have done for me and continue to do for me. Without a doubt, Dr. Phil saved my life.
Brandy, thank you for that update. I am so proud of how you're doing at this point. More amazing updates after the break. No one knows the struggle of addiction better than my next guest, Tiffany. Now, she absolutely shocked her father, Ken, when it was revealed on this stage that she was using heroin.
My parents have no idea that I'm using heroin. I'm really scared to tell them. Right now, I'm spending up to $100 a day on heroin.
You are a heroin addict, and you did heroin today, correct?
Really? Heroin? You have no idea, as your dad, what that makes me feel.
I just do it to feel normal. People think like, oh, doing drugs, fun, friends, partying. It's not. It's my survival.
You've got somebody that is on self-destruct.
Right.
To continue that self-destruction, she needs funding, and so y'all make sure she has it. That is no different than if you went and bought it for her and gave it to her. This has disaster written all over it. No more coddling this kid. Tiffany is here with her father, Ken, and I gotta say, you look a whole lot better. And you look a whole lot happier.
Dr. Phil, I just want to take 2 seconds and just share that our family is so grateful to what the Dr. Phil Show and your staff, Justin and everybody has provided to us. We're totally convinced that if we hadn't been a part of your programs 5 years ago, that my daughter wouldn't be with us today. And I kid you not, when I told Justin, if you need me to sweep the lots or park cars, I mean, I'm indebted to you and your staff for the rest of my life.
Well, thank you for saying that. This was hard for you, right?
I knew I wrote to your show, and me coming on the show, it was like winning the lottery, you know? So for me to go to treatment and then mess up, and you said, you know, no, we're not gonna surrender to the disease. And I'm forever grateful for you for that. I have a little boy, I'm planning a wedding, my life is completely different today, and I'm so grateful.
Yeah, that is so great, because you are worth it, and you're paying it forward by being here, because there are people that relate to your story, saw what you've been through, saw what you had to face as a father. So God bless both of you for doing what you're doing. All right. Now, my next guest, Layla, said totaling her Lexus while driving 110 miles an hour while drunk did nothing to stop her from partying 24/7. Take a look.
I love partying. Now we are on our way to a real party at a real club to have some real fun.
Layla's partying is more important to her than anything. Layla is an absolute attention whore.
All right, come on.
I equate drinking with having fun and being sexy. I like the drunk Layla. Oh my god. Look what I found. More beer! I have successfully wrecked 4 cars.
She was completely obliterated and ran into a tree going 110 miles an hour.
I didn't have a scratch on me.
We get drunk till we black out, operate motor vehicles, and hit a telephone pole at 80. You think that's normal?
I do know a lot of people who have totaled their cars as a result of drinking and driving, so I don't think it's that abnormal.
Then you know a lot of moronic idiots. Well, there's somebody else I want you to meet. Tiffany was only 17 when a night of getting drunk and partying ended up in this. The drunk friend who hit Tiffany's car was going 130 miles an hour and did not survive. Tiffany, come on out.
It's a tragedy that someone else can be so selfish and inconsiderate of the damage that they can cause to someone else's life because of a night of fun that you won't even remember the next morning because you're so intoxicated. It's a miracle that I am here today and to relay a message of truth. And I can only beg you to listen.
This is you. You get that, right?
I don't know how to stop.
There's a treatment center that specializes in young women.
I want to go.
Well, joining us now is Layla, who I'm proud to say is over 7 years sober. Wow. A little bit different now, huh?
Yes.
So what has changed?
Okay, I'm having a baby.
Yeah,
Got married, and you gave me a life beyond my wildest dreams, and I thank you for that.
We had a pretty rough go in the beginning, right?
Oh, yes.
Because you had a tendency to kind of talk and dominate.
You know, my parents were super soft. I don't think I'd ever been told no my whole life. And it wasn't until I came on stage where you said, shut up, sit down, do what I say. Scared the crap out of me.
What stuck with you? What woke you up in the moment? What was the real turning point for you?
Probably bringing Tiffany on stage was definitely an eye-opener. I never considered hurting anybody else in my process. You know, I remember you saying that I was driving a 5,000-pound missile, which was absolutely true.
Yeah.
That scared me. No, I'm mad at myself still. You know, I'm watching the recaps and I'm going, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
What are you doing? I was so out of my mind. I was just so selfish because I have the disease of alcoholism and I'm self-centered and selfish and I'm not thinking about anybody else.
You're one of many people who have said you felt like you could always reach out to the staff across time. Why did you feel that way?
Well, everyone has always been very helpful here. And you know, Justin, Andrea, I mean, people have reached out to me after, making sure that I'm doing okay. You know, I've come back to the show a couple of times and helped other young women.
Yes, you have, and thank you for that.
Yes, I've always felt supported. I know that if, God forbid, knock on wood, something were to happen, I know I could call Justin and we'd figure something out.
Well, in fact, Justin, come out here. Justin's over here. Come out here, join us. Bring your seat up. This is the Justin that she's talking about.
And likes to stay back there, not out here.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he likes to be behind the camera, but too bad, so sad. So how long have you been here?
Since day one, before the stage was built.
Yeah, I've often said people work here and they're paid, but it's not about the money.
Oh, not at all. Days like today are just fantastic. Seeing all the guests that I've worked with over the years, some like 12 years back, it's just seeing their families. I mean, it's really remarkable. It's pretty amazing. 'Cause I was 22 when I started. Now I have a wife, I have a son. I mean, it's great to see and grow together. It's pretty cool.
So what are you doing now?
I've been doing admissions for treatment centers. So I'm an admissions counselor, so I help crisis situations. So I get calls all day long from crying mothers. I get calls all day long from people that say, I can't do this anymore.
Wow.
I get calls, and I can say, I get it. I understand what you're going through, and here's what we can do to help.
Right.
And then I also own a sober living home for women.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. A little hard for them to con you, isn't it?
Right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, they ain't getting nothing by me.
Yeah.
I know all the tricks.
But you didn't get around Justin.
No.
She tried.
Yeah.
She tried.
So how do you, How do you keep these people corralled when they get here? What happens from day one, minute one?
It happens before they even get out here. I mean, we alert the hotel to make sure that they know that there's someone that has an addiction issue coming, especially alcohol. Before they even come here, we'll alert security to let them know they need to check those bags really good to make sure and alert us if something's ever happened. And we keep tabs on them. I worked with Tiffany. She even said we wouldn't let her go to the bathroom by herself. I mean, it's serious. We keep tabs. We stay on them. Yeah.
They get meal vouchers, right? That they can
you
use?
can't use that for alcohol. Only for food.
Only
That's
for food.
it.
No alcohol. But you do make friends. You make associations.
Yeah. I mean, I'm friends with a lot of our past guests. You're happy that you're saving their lives. You're helping their families, and you become friends and family.
Very nice to have such a wonderful support system from the start.
Well, I'm proud of that. I'm proud of our staff and how they handle all of this. More amazing updates when we come back.
Marijuana is something that helps me relax. They want to hear me say I do other drugs, but I don't.
Don't yell at me! Shut the up!
Now, my next guest, David, wrote to me saying that his 21-year-old daughter, Danielle, was spiraling out of control. He said not only did she have violent rages, she was also using drugs and driving under the influence.
My daughter, Danielle, is a ticking time bomb.
Don't yell at me! When I get mad, I rage.
Shut the up!
What were you arrested for, Danielle?
I was drunk in public.
She's driving under the influence. She's getting into combat with people. I mean, something serious can happen here, right?
And that's my concern, is something is gonna happen, and it's gonna happen soon.
Marijuana is something that helps me relax. They want to hear me say I do other drugs, but I don't.
I had suspicions. I went into her room. She keeps her money in this, and that's her cocaine.
I think your behavior is self-destructive. I think it's outrageous. I think it's often criminal, and it absolutely has to stop. You say nobody listens to you, nobody gets it, nobody understands. Look me in the eye. I do. I have a plan. I'm asking you to trust me to let us evaluate and give you some answers that you need. Will you do that for me?
I can do it.
Well, joining us in the audience is Danielle's father, David. So, David, thank you for being here.
Thank you, sir.
Tell us how she's doing.
She is continuing on her path that you have her on, and she's doing very well. I've had the opportunity to visit my daughter along her journey, and she looks so different, Dr. Phil. It's somebody that I haven't recognized in many years. And I can't thank you enough. My family and I can't thank you enough for an opportunity for her to get her life back.
I'm glad to hear that because, as you know, and I think we told you at the time, once they leave here and go into the treatment center, we take a completely hands-off approach. We don't get involved in their treatment. We step back and let the pros do what they do. They're there each day, they know. So getting a report from you is great for us because we like to hear what's going on.
Your staff is phenomenal. They were involved in every step.
Yeah.
Because of the situation with my daughter and why we were here, it's necessary, absolutely, just to ensure that there's safety and that people are doing the right thing.
Well, that's the thing. It's just when we have somebody on drugs or alcohol coming in, we do stay on them close because A, they'll run. That's why it's so regimented. That's why it's so programmed. That's why you're never left alone for a second.
Exactly. Just by the nature of where we are, Hollywood Boulevard, this area, anybody can get anything at any time. It made me feel better.
Yeah.
As a father, as part of this, knowing that the care and attention was given our family and my daughter.
Yeah, we have tractor beams we'll put on you. We have to. 3 years, and all three are sober.
My life has changed so much for the better. Dr. Phil saved my life.
You gave me a life beyond my wildest dreams.
I'm indebted to you and your staff for the rest of my life.
You didn't give up.
Check your local listings.